Welcome to the Hope Unlocked podcast. I'm your host, Kristin Kurtz, and I'm also the founder of New Wings Coaching. I help and empower wild-hearted and adventurous women of faith feeling caged and stuck unlock their true purpose and potential, break free from limitations, and thrive with confidence, courage, and hope. If you're curious to learn more about coaching with me, head to newwingscoaching.net and be sure to explore the show notes for ways to connect with me further. Get ready to dive in as we uncover empowering keys and insights in this episode. So tune in and let's unlock hope together. Welcome to the Hope Unlocked podcast. I'm Kristin Kurtz, your host. I pray this episode is like a holy IV of hope for your soul. Please help me welcome Julie Nowacki to the show today. I am just excited to have her here. I feel like it's been a long time coming, and we actually got connected on social media. I think it was a few years ago. I can't remember, but you know how you meet those people where you have kind of this instant connection? We have a lot of crossover similarities, but yet differences. And it was just such a blessing to meet and connect with her. And I'm just so excited to have her come on and share her story here today. So Julie, would you be open to just sharing a little bit more about you and who the Lord calls you?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is so much fun to be on your show today because I know we've been trying to schedule this for a long time, and it just seems like our schedules would just keep not allowing to make it happen. So here we
and
are.
This is perfect today.
April 24th, 424. And before I share a little bit about it, the Lord just, highlighted those numbers to me when we got this scheduled. And then as I was looking up a scripture, John 4:24, God is spirit and his worshipers must worship in the spirit and in truth. And that already just spoke to me. So a little bit about myself. I was raised as a Christian in a Christian home. We did music ministry on the road. My family and I did when I was younger. And then I started working for a Christian record company, helping manage and develop artists. And so I did that for 20 years. But before I ended up saying farewell to that career, I went into a identity crisis, and what I call it is purpose depression. So we can talk about that a little bit. I've been married for 21 years. We have a 15-year-old daughter, and we are just enjoying life with her before she gets launched into her next, world-changing assignment that the Lord has on her life. So excited to be here.
Well, yeah, if you could go back to that purpose word you just shared, I feel like there's something on that is a big part of your story, right?
Yes, absolutely. So we ended up having a miscarriage when Audrey, our daughter, was about 2.5, 3 years old. And it really was a very hard time in our life because my husband and I were really not on good terms. We were on the verge of deciding whether or not we were going to continue on in this marriage. And so when I found out I was pregnant, I got really angry with the Lord. And I started agreeing with some lies, and fear immediately set in. We ended up losing the baby, and from the moment of conception, it was not a healthy pregnancy. So thankfully, the Lord allowed me to know that and to know that, I did not cause it. But I ended up going into the doctor and, saying, gosh, we are not ready to add to our family. We need an option. And so I ended up having an IUD, and the IUD literally made me go crazy. For 10 months, I was ridden with fear, anxiety, depression, suicide ideation. I was out of my mind. And it was a point where I had to really ask the Lord, okay, God, it's not about what I'm doing. It's about who I am. And for so long, my identity was wrapped up in what I was doing because I started working for the record company at a very young age. And it was my parents' record company. So I got promoted into a very top leadership position at a very young age, managing artists that were 20 to 30 years older than me.
Wow.
So I could not do that anymore because I was literally my brain was scrambled, and I was trying to fight for my own life and fight against just everything that was going on. And so the Lord, I really like to tell people, took me through that Joseph season of knowing that it's not about what we're doing, but it's
Mm-hmm.
about who we are. And so what I tell people is I really had that come to terms
Mm-hmm.
with my purpose
Yeah.
and what I was called to do, and
Mm-hmm.
how was I going to get from point A to point B
Mm-hmm.
without being able to do what I was doing. So that's why I
Right.
call it purpose depression, because I didn't know what I was going to do. Um,
Right.
so that's kind of where that term comes from.
Yeah. So you were in the industry for 20 years and that's what you
Hmm.
knew. So you came into
Hmm.
this point of like, I don't even know who I am anymore. What did that look like for you to walk through it tangibly?
What it looked like was I was very unfamiliar with it because, I helped people get through their areas of brokenness to formulate messages. And I really didn't have, I would say, a compassion for others that had gone through really traumatic experiences, because I really hadn't.
Okay.
And so I kind of just did the thing. I really operated from a place of performance and production,
Mm-hmm.
to the point where I could no longer perform. I could no longer produce. And
Mm-hmm.
that's, I think, where I had to again get to that place of, okay, Lord, so if I'm not capable of doing this, then
Mm-hmm.
who am I
Right.
aside from what I'm doing? Because that's how I'm known, by getting things done. And I
Mm-hmm.
can't do anything. It was so hard to even go into a grocery store. I remember we had a Bible study that was at our church, and I have dear friends there, and I was so scared of walking into that room. I was
Wow.
paralyzed with fear. And when I was able to get enough courage, I
Mm-hmm.
was really good at posturing, pretending, and posing that I was okay. But
Mm-hmm.
really, in reality, there was a dark cloud that was over me, that
Wow.
even though people were speaking truth and praying over me,
Mm-hmm.
nothing was penetrating. There was such a stronghold
Mm-hmm.
over my heart and over my mind that I
Yeah.
could not receive. There was a
Wow.
blockage.
Wow. And you determined, I'm guessing, like in prayer, that it was the root of it was going back partly to that IUD
Oh, yes. Oh,
hormonal,
yes.
like the shift in
Yes.
hormones and all of that
Yep.
was kind of what you determined.
Yes, absolutely. Because one night, I was sitting on our stairs and I had a knife in my hand,
Oh my,
and I was cutting my wrist
oh,
because I was in so much pain internally,
hmm,
and I was wanting out of this life. And
oh,
so I remember walking into my daughter's room, and this is not something I'm proud of, but I'll be honest. I remember walking to my daughter's room. She was 3 years old at the time. This
mhm,
is how insane I was.
mm,
Um, I walked in my daughter's room, saw how she was lying, and
mhm,
tried to figure out how, if I'm going to kill myself, I'm not going to leave my daughter or my husband without a mom or a wife.
mhm, mm,
So I'm going to basically end this family line. And I
oh,
remember the Lord very gently, I remember hearing IUD. And I
mm,
said, okay, IUD. And I remember Googling, how do I take this IUD out?
yeah,
Because I am literally going to make a choice that's going to destroy a
mm,
family and so much of my future and my daughter's future, my husband's future. But I am
mhm,
desperate. And so I remember Googling it,
yeah,
and it said, well, this is a very dangerous thing to do and it may kill you. And I
oh my,
remember saying, well, if it kills me, then that's what it's supposed to be.
mm,
And
oh,
by the grace of God, I
mhm.
did. I took that IUD out
At that moment.
at that moment.
Oh my gosh.
And when I went into my doctor, he's like, "Oh, so how's your birth control IUD work?" And I said, "Yeah, not working." I took it out. He said, "What? You know you could have killed yourself? You know you could have like." I'm like, "Yeah, I was so at a point where I had to have something
Mm,
different." And
mhm,
over like probably, I don't know, a couple days, a few
mhm.
days, I started noticing a difference.
Oh my gosh.
Oh
Just
yeah.
I'm just thinking of how many women out there
Mhm.
have this, and
Mm-hmm.
they have no idea that that is a potential if they're experiencing symptoms like you had
Mm-hmm.
experienced. Because
Mm-hmm.
was that even something that was like mentioned to you when you got it, that there could be this type of side effect?
Well, this is the interesting thing. So, a lot of people are familiar with Mirena,
Hmm.
and this was a little version of Mirena called Skyla. I
Oh
was the very first one in that office to ever have Skyla.
my gosh.
I don't even know if it's still on the market, but what I do know is that Skyla was removed.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
yeah, it really wasn't talked about. I mean, because I mean, of course, they say it's gonna kind of, disrupt your hormones. And I had been on birth control before, and orthotricycline, and I didn't have
Yeah.
anything.
Hmm.
But this one definitely did not respond well
Hmm.
to what was going on. And
Oh.
then I ended up, yeah, making that decision. And then I also remember after kind of everything started getting a little bit back to normal, the Lord was like, I need you to say yes to something I'm asking you to do. And I was
Mm.
like, Lord, this does not make any sense. Why am I saying yes to a makeup company? I don't even wear makeup. I don't even know what I'm doing with makeup. And I said yes,
Mhm.
and I was literally, like, promoted 3 times within a month. That's how I started Fierce Princess Warriors, because I said, "We
Mhm.
as women have to be honest with what's going on. It doesn't matter what we see on the outside. It doesn't matter how strong of a person we look, we
Mhm.
look like we are. If we are not honest with each other,
Yeah.
then we are literally giving ground to the enemy to continue to wreak havoc." And so I
Mhm.
started Fierce Princess Warriors, started worship nights in the community, started gathering the women together, and then started sharing my testimony.
Wow. And how soon after did all this like come to be? This yes after your experience like removing the IUD?
It was pretty instantaneous. It was like, let me think. My mom had a Hope Unleashed conference, and I was like, Mom, why am I going to Hope Unleashed? I have no hope.
Oh.
And literally a few days before that conference, there was a silver lining, and a grace got dropped on me, and I ended up just coming alive. It was
Mm.
like, whoa, I feel completely different.
Wow.
It was like I can't even explain what happened. It's like my whole life just came back to life. It was like a spiritual defibrillator.
Wow.
Um, and I awakened. And then I remember going to that conference, and I was sharing with the women like what I had literally just come out of. Like,
Mhm.
I had no hope. I was suicidal. I was depressed. I was anxious. I was
Mhm.
able to share and impart whatever God was doing in that moment to
Yeah.
these women. And then 3 days later, I got back to that same place of, okay, I don't know what that was, but I'm back to being hopeless again. And
Oh.
so it wasn't like it wasn't like an instantaneous healing. It was
Mhm.
a progressional healing, that the
Mhm.
Lord still said, I have work to do because you're still operating from this place of performing for your identity, and I
Mhm.
will not have you be there. I want you to know that you are
Mhm.
who you are, and what you are does not matter, because I love you for who you are. And it's all
Mhm.
about whose we are.
Yes.
So, but it was a 10-month, I would say, the whole journey was about 10 months. And then in December, the last day of December of 2014 or 2015, I think it's
Mhm.
2015,
Mhm.
I ended up saying yes and
Mm.
starting Fierce Princess Warriors.
Well, tell us a little bit more about Fierce Princess Warriors. What is that to those who don't know what that is?
Yeah, so Fierce Princess Warriors is, again, one of those things, just kind of like you, Kristen, when we just hear something that the Lord is asking us to say yes to, and we don't really understand what we're doing or why we're saying yes.
Mhm.
Fierce Princess Warriors was really developed, again, to speak truth and identity over women and for us to be honest, but it was also um, just like for women to know that our spiritual authority and identity is in Christ.
Mhm.
And out of our relationship with Him, He invites us into freedom, into all areas of our hearts, and then whatever we're called to impact. And it's based off the scripture Hebrews 4:11. For the word of God is living and active, sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing to the division of soul and of spirit, of joints and of marrow, and
Mhm.
discerning the thoughts and intentions of the heart.
Yeah.
And that just became an international group.
Wow.
Um, that we've had incredible praise reports of women not being able to get pregnant. They've had amazing, pregnancies, blessed births. We've had healings take place. It's just a group of women coming together and supporting each other,
Mhm.
just to call them higher into their authority and identity.
It's beautiful. Now, is that local or online or both?
No, it's online. It's a Facebook group. And then from that, we started doing local community worship nights, and we
Mhm.
would involve worship, all different churches. And then we would do creative arts. We would have dancers, we would have painters, we would have spoken word. We
Mhm.
literally were just bringing the women together of my community and
Mhm.
saying, here's a place you belong. And we
Mm.
want to be coming alongside of you and supporting you.
Yes. Well, so this has been about 10 years, is that right?
Hmm.
Since things
Hmm.
started? Um,
Yeah.
it took about 10 months for you to come out of that time, right?
Yeah.
I'm thinking like John 10:10, like life and life
Oh,
abundant.
right.
So
Come
now you're
on.
having this, you have this complete shift, right? And
Mhm.
who did he show you you were created to be once you came out of that time? It was like, 10 months technically represents time of birthing. So who was
Mhm.
Julie created to be?
I know, and that's something that I think, I never really had the opportunity to discover while I was working for the company. So that's the other thing. I ended up quitting my job with the company after 20 years in February of 2016 and
Yeah.
started walking to an unknown journey because I never really focused on me. I focused on others and making sure that they were being who God called them to be and
Yeah.
helped launch them into their destiny.
Hmm.
So, I mean, he really over time has started to kind of unveil who he created me to be, but really it's my position of being a daughter of his first and foremost, and
Hmm.
then out of that, calling others into just identity. And I mean, now what I'm doing, I've had people prophesy over me about Deborah and
Hmm.
Esther's and, all those words that we get. But it's really the Lord's called me to really be a reformer and reform things out of just the justice call that I have on my life.
Mm. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, part of when I came out of just that season, I went up to a Dare to Be event with Natalie Grant and Charlotte Gamble.
Mhm.
And I will never forget, Natalie was talking about her just work that she does with human trafficking.
Mhm.
And I remember she said the Lord wants you to ask him what is going to basically burn bright in your life, and how can we partner with something that breaks God's heart. So Lord, break my heart for what breaks yours, right?
Mhm.
And the Lord just like dropped in my spirit, I want you to partner in this mission. I want you to be a part of this. And so started supporting her in that, but then I went the next step further and I started finding out who in my community is doing this work,
Mhm.
helping the girls that are, wanting to get out of this life or those that have been rescued. And to
Mhm.
make the long story short, I started partnering with an organization and started working with girls rescued from human trafficking and started to get to know their stories, started to walk them through healing, started
Mhm.
to just see them for who they are, not how they can be used.
Mhm.
And so, again, that's where kind of the justice started coming up. I'm like, oh no, this is one of God's kids. Like, they will
Right.
not be taken advantage of. And
Mhm.
from that, that's when I started getting the download of opening up the Creative Arts and Therapy Center for kids.
Mhm.
Um, Little did I know it was going to be for youth suicide prevention until something happened locally in our community. The justice side of me said, not on my watch. These are our youth. And
Mhm.
then it's just kind of transpired into multiple different endeavors that I'm involved with now. And it's just one step in front of the next, not knowing where God is leading me, but I say yes.
Oh, can you say that again? Somebody needs to hear that.
Which
That
part?
last part, the last part, the taking a step, saying yes.
Yeah, so it's like it's just the Lord leading us one step at a time,
Mhm.
not knowing where those steps are taking us, but
Yeah.
saying yes and trusting in Him and just being obedient to go in those areas that maybe
Mhm.
you've never even thought about going because it's not about what you think you're doing in that area. It's about who God needs you to be in that area to occupy some of this,
Mhm.
these areas and territories.
Yes. Well, I feel like somebody might be just wondering, like, I'm not qualified to do any of that. Like, can you just talk about that a little bit? Like, how did you ever face kind of, well, I can't do that. I'm
Gosh,
not qualified. I don't,
yes.
like, what
Yes,
did that look like for
absolutely.
you? Right?
Absolutely. Yeah, when he called me to start up a creative arts and therapy center for kids, I have a PR media
Mm-hmm.
background in artist management. And then, of course, I started my own conversion promotions, which is based off of John 17 and really coming together in spirit and truth. So I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have a mental health background. I was
Right.
like, Lord, the community
Right.
already is kind of like, what is Julie doing now? Like, now I'm going to come in and I'm going to say, oh, we're going to start a creative arts and therapy center for kids.
Right.
So, absolutely, I did not feel qualified. I have a college education. I have a GOD. I mean, I have a high school diploma in college, but I tell people I don't need a college degree. I have a GOD who
Yes.
places me in positions that I don't feel qualified for. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I was asked to start working on campaigns and start managing, political candidates, I didn't have any experience. I didn't go to any campaign school. I didn't go to any legislative like college to get a degree in political science. I did not know what I was doing. But
Right.
it's not about us being qualified. It's that phrase where it says God doesn't call, what is it?
And
He doesn't
call
call the qualified, he equips the, what is it? Oh, it's
He doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
where God doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called, right?
Mm-hmm.
So both of those,
Mm-hmm.
again, it's not about what we think we're qualified to do. It's the qualifier and the COO, the CCO, the chief commanding officer who says it's time to enlist.
Mm-hmm.
Will you say yes? And part of the boot camp is doing the thing. So
Exactly. Exactly. And I love that. I think that's part of why we connected so much is because of that, the willingness to say yes when it looks,
mhm,
it literally looks kind of crazy. And sometimes we have to even remind ourselves, like, we say yes, and it may look crazy, but at the end of the day, like you said, people have letters behind their names that they put on their emails, and for me too, it's like the GOD. Like, that's
mhm,
you want to ask me
mhm.
what my qualifications are?
Right. Exactly.
Probably the best one you could ever come up with, if you ask me,
Exactly.
right?
Yes. Yep, exactly. Well, and
Oh my
two,
God.
when a producer came to me and he's like, "Hey, Julie, I want to do a movie. Can you help me with this?" Like, I've never been part of producing a movie, but because I know people and because I know how to get people excited about things that they might not be excited about
Mhm.
before, then I
Mhm.
was a production and casting coordinator for a film, and then it moved into additional film promotions. And so it
Yeah.
really is not about where
Mhm.
you think you need to go. It's about where does God need you to go.
Man, so many keys here you're dropping. Oh, so when you look back, like, which one of these yeses would you say were kind of the most crazy, and maybe you were a little hesitant to step into? Ever hear something on this show that stirs something deep, like a nudge from God that there's more? That's stirring. It's not random. I'm Kristin Kurtz, host of Hope Unlocked and the founder of New Wings Coaching, and I'm inviting you into a 45-minute unlocking session, a sacred space to press in, hear what heaven is saying, and activate your next bold step. If you're a trailblazer or kingdom voice ready to break free from doubt and live fully alive, this is for you. Book now at newwingscoaching.net/hopeunlocked for special listener pricing. You were born to live uncaged and unapologetically bold. Now back to the show.
I would say it was definitely the art and therapy center for kids,
Mhm,
just because it literally was a blueprint that the Lord had given me. And
mhm,
then it became real tangible and real
mhm,
when my husband's dad took his own life. And
mhm,
so when I was kind of given that blueprint and was down at School of Creativity at Bethel, I
mhm,
came back and I was really excited. And I started to engage the different counselors and the different artists and saying, hey, could we see something like this happen? So I was really wanting them to take it on,
mhm,
and then kind of create a coalition out of it because of their experience and professionalism.
mhm,
And then 2 days after, I spoke at a conference on literally how the Lord healed and delivered me from this season that I went through, that Joseph season. We
mhm,
received a call that my husband's dad had taken his own life.
mhm,
And his name was Rod. And so the Lord said, I'm going to redeem and I'm going to reclaim
mhm,
this incident, and the Lord is going to get, the glory, and it's not going to be about what the enemy did. So
mhm,
he's like, yeah, that creative art and therapy center for kids, this kind of dialogue I'm having with the Lord. He's like, yeah, you're supposed to do that. I said,
mhm.
God, I'm not. Like, what? Like, why? And then he gave me the name Elrod. Well, he gave me the name Rod. I wanted to I wanted to memorialize my husband's dad, and I said, Lord, Rod Center, is there something different?
Mhm,
And then he started showing me like Elohim, El Shaddai. And I was
mhm.
like, oh, Elrod. And then he gave me the acronym Empowering Lives, Reclaiming Our Destiny.
Oh, I love
Um,
that.
and we had that open for 5 years, and countless kids and families were restored, and kids' lives were
Mm,
saved because we just said yes. We had no money in the bank. I met a
mm,
licensed professional counselor through a mutual friend, and the Lord just quickened that relationship, and we ended up forming it within 2 weeks of meeting. Um, and
yikes.
so again, it's just like I
Mm,
can't make this stuff up, and I don't do it
right,
to boast,
right.
of what I'm able. It's what God can do.
Mhm.
Boast of his
Yes.
grace. When he puts his grace, the operational power of God comes on an assignment
Mhm,
that he wants you to say yes to. And when he asks you to release it, then
mhm,
you need to release it and
mhm.
don't hold on to it, because then you will have the old grace and
Yeah.
things will be hard. And I told Mary, and I said, we will not strive to make something happen, because we
Mhm.
will have to strive to sustain it. And I will not go
Yes.
back into the performance production of just the striving. And
Mhm.
we stayed true to that to the very end.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. That is so true. I look to that all the time. Like, I think somebody at one point had said, whatever you build in striving, you have to maintain in striving.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
like I
Yep.
came out of that world of like striving and go, go, go. It's
Right.
and just generational on my end. It's like in my blood to be kind of a workhorse
Mhm.
and to go through that, transformation. It's for me, it was uncomfortable. Was it uncomfortable for you to kind of, it's almost recalibrating, you know?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it absolutely is. It's undoing a mindset that you have, and then you feel like you're lazy when you're not doing anything,
Yeah, yeah.
because your body is literally on autopilot for produce, 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 produce.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're not producing and you're resting, then you feel guilty that you're not producing.
Right.
So it is a lot of mental gymnastics that go on, and the spiritual warfare. I mean, it's
Absolutely.
also
Yeah.
warfare because the Lord is trying to
Mm-hmm.
undo so that he can place new things. But
Mm-hmm.
it means we have to be intentional about letting go of things that we may feel like, well, we need to hold on to these because they're ours. It's like,
Right.
no, they're not.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was curious as were stepping into these places.
Hmm.
I love coming alongside gals who are like doing wild and crazy things. And like, did you have people like in your corner that were cheering you on, or did you have a lot of people going, "What are you doing?" Like, what is Julie? Where'd Julie go?
I've been very blessed to have a an amazing group of women around me that, yes, has cheered me on. And it's a small and mighty group, and that I'm very thankful for,
Yeah.
because there are some that, yes, they don't get it.
Mhm.
And I'm not going to try to convince them, because if they're more concerned about what I'm doing that God has called me to do, and
Mhm.
they have more time to think about it, then they obviously are not doing what it is that God is calling them to do, because I don't have time to be a police on other people's lives and ministries and their assignments. I just don't. And
Right.
so I don't tolerate it, and I don't engage in it, and I don't extend any emotional energy towards it, because it's
Mhm.
counterproductive. It's not going to change if God sends me,
Mhm.
home and he says, "Hey, I've asked you to do this, but fear has
Mhm.
kept you from doing it."
Mhm.
And I will not allow the fear of man. So I think some people that have a hard time with just
Mhm.
man's approval,
Yeah.
I think they have a hard time understanding why I'm not intimidated by man. But I
Mm.
think it's because of what I've walked through in
Yeah.
my life.
Mhm.
And I've been sat down by Christian leaders telling me that I'm doing too much and I need to sit down and stop.
Mhm.
But I take that in, but then
Mhm.
there's a fire in me that gets lit, because
Yeah.
I will not allow someone to tell me what to do when
Mm.
God has asked me to do something, and there's an increase, and there's just like this confirmation after confirmation. Like,
Mhm.
yes, there's wisdom. Absolutely. I seek wisdom and counsel on, things, and I make sure that, two or more agree. And there is a level of maturity that I have learned along the ways.
Yeah.
Um, but again, that I've learned over time. Did I make mistakes? Absolutely. Was I a bird let out of a cage when I left the company and I could do anything and everything? Yes, absolutely.
Mhm.
But it's made me who I am today, and there's a grit that I
Yeah.
have that no one can take.
Absolutely. I mean, I think of how many truly, I mean, I could think of several people that I've talked to in the last few weeks who, whether family or acquaintances, that really struggle with that fear of man. What would
Mhm.
you say to them, like to really get delivered of that?
Yeah, well, I think it has to do with, again, where is your identity? And are you expecting someone to approve of
Mhm.
you and what you're doing? And
Mhm.
you're trusting in them more than you are trusting in God. And you're depending on them more than you are on God. And
Mhm.
I would say that honestly, the Lord is the one who he wants to enter in those areas. He wants to be the one that we trust and depend fully on. And
Mhm.
so when we put that expectation on man, we're
Yeah.
setting ourselves up, because we will be disappointed.
Mhm.
We will be taken advantage of. We will be misled. We will be mistreated.
Mhm.
And I think it just gets to the point where it's happened enough, and you're like, forget it. Like, I'm,
Right.
I'm I'm not going to allow someone to keep me from doing what God has called me to do. So there is this level of courage. And again, I think it has to do, I've been, like I said, I've been raised in a Christian home my entire life. I've been working for Christian ministry my entire life. And now I'm
Mhm.
going into these spaces where I'm not going in as a Christian. I'm going in because they see something that I
Mhm.
have that they
Mhm.
want for me to be part of what they're doing. And it looks a lot different. So I tell you what, right now, Kristen, I'm probably going to have a lot of religious people coming after me, because I'm not starting new projects or initiatives essentially that are faith based.
Mhm.
I had someone ask me, they said, "Well, is this a Christ-centered, program?" I said, "Well, Christ
Mhm.
is in me and I'm in the center of it. So yeah, it's Christ-centered, but is it saying that it's like
Right.
faith-based and it's Jesus all over? No.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
where I'm at in my life right now, the Lord is utilizing me in very strategic ways.
Mhm.
And I have to have wisdom and discernment as to when I say something. It's that quote that says, preach the gospel, but use words when only necessary.
Mm. Mm.
That's where I'm at right now, in a
Mhm.
very strategic place that I do not lead with,
Mhm.
I love Jesus.
Right. Right.
I do love Jesus,
Yes.
but it's like going into those territories where, You will get kicked out before you even have a chance to be
Mm,
in the room.
yeah. That is so good. I'm just thinking, like you're a ninja, just seeing like going in like a ninja. Could you give an example of like what that looks like stepping into those places? And you don't have to like disclose exactly,
Yeah.
where you're going or what you're doing, but
Yeah.
to somebody who's like, well, how would I even do that? Like, what does that look like?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, I know I have a huge government call in my life. I've been trying to run from it, but it continues to follow me. So going into those spaces of government where there's a lot of political power at play,
Hmm.
and there's a lot of conversations that seem somewhat distorted and confused
Hmm.
because the other side and the agenda is really loud.
Hmm.
And so I study the opposite side.
Mm.
It's like you study the other side and what they're doing so that you can bring in some very strategic language that gets them to realize, wow, they know what they're talking about
Hmm.
and not what I think I want to say.
Mm.
So when you are in those rooms and you hear the conversations, not always are you saying something, but you are paying attention to the language. So
Hmm.
then when you feel like the Lord is kind of impressed upon you to say something, you say it. And it's like that sharp double edged sword that just goes in. And you're
Hmm.
not saying anything that really is different, but because we have authority in
Hmm.
what we speak,
Hmm.
because Jesus is inside of us, the Holy Spirit is inside of us, it
Hmm.
counters
Hmm.
the things that are being discussed. And I've seen literally people and their conversations shift
Mm.
after I say something. And there's such like I don't know how to explain this, but it's actually, it's very interesting because I feel more intimidated
Hmm.
and insecure when I'm speaking to a group of pastors and leaders than when I'm speaking to government officials.
That's so interesting. What do you sense that is?
Religion.
Mm-hmm.
It's the religious spirit that I'm coming up against because I'm not doing it in a way that some pastors and leaders would approve of. Now, I'm a licensed minister. So it's
Hmm.
not, but I don't go into rooms saying, I'm a licensed minister. I'm here to
Right,
talk to you. I
right.
don't need any title. I mean, people call me pastor, apostle, whatever.
Mhm.
They can call me whatever they want. I don't
Yeah.
need that to be able to speak or
Say
to
that
be
again.
acknowledged,
Say that again.
you know? Because a
Yes.
lot of pastors are doing a lot of damage,
Mm-hmm.
or they're expecting a level of allegiance
Mm-hmm.
because they're a pastor. And when I was younger, pastors were never authoritative figures in my life because we traveled to all these different churches. We were like the guests of the house.
Mm-hmm.
So we would always get invited to the pastor's house. We would get invited out with the pastor. So I
Mm-hmm.
have never seen a pastor as someone who tells you what to do or someone that you need to get approval from. Never.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and it seems like that's been upticking quite a bit, wouldn't you say?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Well, what is the solution? You are a solutionist. I love your solution. So what would you say to people who are finding themselves in situations like that?
Mhm. Well, I mean, I think it's simple. It's be who God is calling you to be for that day. And
Mm,
again, it's not something about saying the right thing, performing the right way. It's about intentionality, and that's going to come from intimacy.
mm-hmm,
It has to come from our intimacy behind closed doors.
mm-hmm,
And a lot of peeling back layers, a lot of undoing mindsets, a
mm-hmm,
lot of replacing our indoctrination. If you've been in the church for a while,
mm-hmm,
not being afraid to ask questions,
mm-hmm,
not being afraid to hold others accountable when you have relationship and there's trust built.
yeah.
I think we have to be so careful who we allow to speak into our lives
Mm-hmm,
because there's too many that are doing it for personal agenda and motive.
yeah. Yeah,
And
that's
relationship is built at the speed of trust. So if
mm-hmm,
you don't have trust with that person and you feel like you're getting manipulated, controlled, coerced,
mm-hmm,
you need to pay attention and not just go along with it because they're in leadership or they're a pastor or they're an authoritative figure. Listen to that still small voice. If there's a check in your spirit, then
Yeah.
check. Why is there a check?
Right. Check the check.
Yeah, check the check. Exactly.
Yeah. It's so good. I mean, we just really have to be so discerning. There's so many voices, there's so much noise. And it can sound good, right? Things can
Hmm. Yep.
sound good, but is it God? Is it his
Right.
good for you? Like, is this his best for you, right?
Hmm. Well, the devil comes disguised as an angel of light. So why are we surprised?
Mhm. Yeah. Such times. So I love like just even the last, like I said, I think it's been a few years that we've been connected. But it's been really exciting to just hear little snippets of what's happening in your life. So what's happening now? Like what is Julie up to now?
Yeah, so what's happening now is I've been placed in a community position where I get to offer resources to our community, which is such an amazing opportunity because it's what I've been doing, what I'm passionate about doing. Bring me a problem. I want to help solve it. I want to get you connected to the right people. I don't like people feeling stuck or I don't like people feeling like there isn't a solution. So I've been also stepping into a lot of advocacy with youth. So I've been coming alongside of families and working through some challenges with runaway youth, with girls being human trafficked, with ones that are in prison. And I've just been a voice of encouragement and tenacity with families. So my heart is really for this next generation. I really am passionate about seeing this generation just live out their full potential. And
Mm,
so there's some other initiatives that I'm working on that will impact youth. Another one is a suicide prevention that's a worldwide organization that I'm chair of policy and advocacy for. So I've been doing a lot more in the government space and kind of getting to the root of why we have the dysfunction we have here in Oregon with our just departments
mm,
and kind of asking some questions and staying pretty resilient and holding people accountable. So
mm. And do you have a lot of people like coming alongside you to help? I know you're like a mobilizer, which is amazing.
yes, yeah. So I do. And what's really neat is Megan and I know you've had her on,
Mhm.
we are doing She Leads Oregon, which is a part of She Leads America. So it's a national organization where women come together and bring faith-based solutions to modern day challenges. And really um, the intercessors and the influencers are interconnecting. And so we've been doing incredible stuff with that as well. But then we also started Crisis Intervention Coalition. And that's another thing where we're trying to put boots on the ground for these different crises and bringing these coalition teams around the different areas where people are passionate about. So
Mm.
that's kind of been in the works since November of 2023. And Megan and I are just really stewarding that and just really trusting in the Lord for his timing. But the people that he's brought along the side of us, and we're just, just incredible. Yeah, we're just incredibly thankful that we have women that do want to see change. So, yeah, great things to come.
Since you're heading up these initiatives, what do you need? Like, if somebody is listening and they're like, how can I help? Or what do you need help with? How can people help if they're led to?
So my thing that I'm just getting ready to kind of release, I really have done it kind of more on the back end, just with my kind of spiritual advisors and just asking them is we need crisis intervention rooms
Mm,
for these runaway youth, for those that are coming off the streets after being trafficked and they want out of the life, and for women escaping domestic violence and they have children or they don't have children. Because what I have found is that when people, suggest shelters, That's the last place they want to go. And with the agencies and all of their data and all of their reporting that they need to do, the questions and the assessments that they're asked to complete prior to even getting into a safe place is just asinine.
Oh,
Um,
really? Yeah.
and so my passion is the 12 to 17-year-old group.
Okay.
And so I'm starting to work on this program called Safe Haven Rooms,
Mm.
where it allows rooms to be sponsored by businesses and churches. So when a crisis arises and we need immediate placement
Mhm.
for a runaway youth or someone that wants off the streets, because we had a situation like that and we couldn't find her housing, that they have a place to go and it's a safe place and they can decompress and
Mhm.
they can rest and they're not bombarded with questions because they are coming out of fighting to survive.
Sure.
So that's my initiative right now, is really creating these safe haven rooms.
Mhm. Wow. So where would they like, would it be housing or like hotels? Like, what does that tangibly look like?
Yeah, I appreciate that. It can look like, housing, it can be hotels. I know when we had a mom that was escaping, we ended up rallying some people together and they helped get 3 nights of a hotel
Mm.
because her abuser was very dangerous. And we even had to call the police and say, okay, this is his vehicle. We need you to patrol this. She's never left and she's scared for her life. And the kids are scared. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, I've also talked to a business owner who, purchases homes for sober living. And there's conversation about having a home set aside for this. So, really, it's one of those things that I do not feel qualified at all to be in this
Sure.
space. I don't know anything about all of this, but what I do know is there's a need and as long as I keep getting the need out there, the Lord's going to connect me with the right ones who know how to make this happen.
So seriously, like I want to just repeat what you said. Like I don't know, but basically God knows, and He'll give you the people that do know.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, because
So
it's much greater than anything that I am able to even think about doing. But all I know is these are our kids. These are our future leaders. We're failing them, and I've heard that time and time again from the youth that are caught up in the systems. And it
mm,
breaks my heart because these
yeah.
are large agencies that are getting funded to help. But when a crisis arises, they're rarely there.
Safe haven.
Hmm.
And is this starting in your state, and you foresee it going like to the United States and potentially global? Is this what I'm seeing?
It's really interesting when things like this happen because of how connected I am. And you get this as a connector
Mhm.
that I'm just saying, Lord, here's my small fish.
Mhm.
I don't know what I'm doing. All I
Yeah.
know is that you dropped this in my spirit
Yeah.
and I responded
Mhm.
and I created, what I need to do to share what it is. And whatever you do with it as far as multiplication and impact, it's
Mhm.
yours.
Yeah. That's so good. I mean, I feel like there's so much on this because you do hear a lot of at least in my area there's sober homes, there's a lot
Mhm.
for addiction recovery, but
Mhm.
and I do know I did interview somebody locally here, Stephanie Page. Um she's on mission, to combat human trafficking and wants to
Mhm.
have a home,
Mhm.
eventually, and
Mhm.
it's been a big dream. It hasn't happened yet,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
I don't know the inner depths of that world either. I want
Yeah.
to be obliterated myself. Uh,
Mhm.
and I know that there's others out there who have a heart for it. So if you
Mhm.
are listening and you have any connections, please reach out to Julie in
Mhm.
any of these areas that she's immersed in. As you can hear, it's not just one thing. And I want to highlight that because I think a lot of times, at least in my world and people that I've worked with and encountered, the world would say just do one thing. Just
Mm.
narrow it in, do the one thing. And you guys can probably
Mhm.
hear Julie's like Proverbs 31 woman. She's got her hands in some things. And yet I can tell that there's like she's resting.
Hmm.
She's taking time to be with the Lord. So what does that look like for you? I feel like
Hmm.
we just need to go here because maybe somebody's like, well, how
Yeah.
do you do all of this? She's a mom. She's, got her hands in all of the things that she's mentioned. Like, how does this even function? How does she?
Yeah. No, that's a good question. And again, I go back to, when the Lord asked Mary, right? I mean, to carry his son,
Mhm.
my goodness, I don't think she felt very qualified.
Oh,
Right? And so she treasured those things and she pondered them in her heart. And
mhm,
so it's not all about sharing everything right away.
mhm,
It's not about getting it out to the masses.
mhm,
It's about intentional purpose of God, you're asking me to steward something that I don't feel capable of doing. So you're going to have to teach me. It's literally being in school of the spirit. And I would
mhm,
say that, Kristen, when I did the job last year when I was going back and forth to Florida to help open up a school, and I ended up, resigning from that job, it
mhm,
took me a couple of months where I really was just downtrodden. I was like, Lord, I thought this was it.
mhm,
But again, he had to bring me back to knowing
mhm,
whose I am in him. So
mhm.
it's not a formula, it's a day to day encounter doing life with the Lord.
Yes.
It's just I cannot say it enough. It's like invite the Lord into every step of your day, every process, and say, Lord,
Mhm.
show me.
Yeah.
It's all about doing, saying what
Mhm.
the Father is doing and saying. And that's my thing. I only do what the Father is doing.
Mhm.
And if I don't feel like he's in it for me personally, I
Yeah.
don't agree with it. And I say no to a lot of things, especially having a PR company. I am inundated with people that want me to help promote their book, their ministry, their
Yeah.
product.
Mhm.
And I say no a lot because, again, my direction right now, and it's taken a while for me to get here. And that's why there is a lot of facets of my
Mhm.
life that you're hearing. But a lot of the things that I've shared, I'm no longer doing.
Yeah.
And so the Lord is really honing me in on this age group, the 12 to 17-year-olds. So
Mhm.
if I am asked to do something and I don't see it impacting this age group, I'm
Yeah.
out. I
Yeah.
won't say yes
Yeah.
because I have to say no so someone else says yes.
Mhm.
Sometimes our yeses, if
Mhm.
we do them just, oh my gosh, no one else will do it, you're
Yep.
actually taking away someone else's opportunity to be bold and courageous and step into an area where maybe they don't feel qualified. But
Mhm.
because you said yes, they don't get that opportunity.
Mm.
So we cannot hoard in the kingdom. We
Mhm.
cannot just take it all and not disperse it. Like
Yeah.
we are kingdom resourcers and
Mhm.
kingdom resources. But we
Mhm.
have to know, is this a giving or is this a receiving season?
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
we have to know how to do both to
Mm.
operate fully.
Mm. So much goodness. I actually was commending somebody earlier today because she was provided some, what on paper would look like some really amazing opportunities, but they would completely be out of alignment. And,
Yeah.
at times it's hard to say no to those things. But I said to her, girl, I am so proud of I call it know your no because NO is within the KNOW. Like
Oh, right.
you have to know your no, right?
Yeah.
You get
Yeah.
really firmed up in that.
So
And
good.
like you said,
Yep.
you've been honed in, really getting what I call alignment with your assignment. Like you're gonna know it. And then there's gonna be times where we might kind of like go sideways, and then he'll bring us back.
Absolutely.
He brings us
Yep.
back.
Yep.
So kind.
Yep. Yep.
So
He's
kind to us.
faithful to that.
He is fun, every day, like you said, to
Yep.
just be available. Like, what are we
Mhm.
doing today, Lord?
Mhm.
It makes
Exactly.
life
Yep.
so interesting, doesn't it?
Yeah. He's the one who has our orders of the day.
Mm, so good. Well,
Yeah.
we'll wrap up. Would love to have you on again sometime to share again if you're led to. But would you be open to sharing with that one that's listening today? Is there anything else that you would like to speak over that one who's listening, any wisdom or encouragement? And then would you pray us out today?
Absolutely. Yeah. I just feel like, the Lord just wants you to know that you're doing well and that there is just a level of just grace on your life and to not compare yourself with others and also don't compete. We need to collaborate together because we have a world that is asking for answers and we have that spiritual antidote. So don't try to be in someone else's shoes. Really ask the Lord, who am I in your eyes? And what is it that I'm supposed to be doing? And keep your hands open. Don't tight fist things because when the Lord wants you to drop them, it's because there's something in someone else that He wants you to get to know and just be in alignment with. So, Lord, I just thank you for today, God. I thank you that you are just such a father, that you love us so well, Lord. And I just pray, Lord, that just your love would penetrate the hearts and minds of those that are listening today, God. We do pray for an unlocking. If there are blockages or if there are things that people need to let go of, or there has been false identities placed on them, God, we ask that you would reveal your identity to them, Lord. And that by knowing who you are and whose they are, God, you would start to heal those places where people have placed expectations on them for things that may be personally motivated by others' desires and ways of living in the flesh and not the spirit. And we just pray, Lord, that your word would come alive and that just everywhere they look, they would be able to encounter you and see in a different way, Lord. We ask for new sight, new ears to hear, a new mouth to speak, and a new mindset to know that we operate from a heavenly perspective. And we want to see heaven on earth, Lord. We want to see your kingdom come. So, Lord, I just ask that even as I pray today, Lord, that things would just illuminate, that things that may have looked dark, that there will start to be seen new colors of light, and that we are called to bring light into darkness. And as one light goes into a dark room, it just fills up. So, Lord, give us boldness, give us faith, give us courage to say yes, even when we don't know what we're saying yes to. So I just bless those that are listening, bless the families, bless the assignments, bless the ministries, bless the jobs, bless everything that we're doing, Lord, because we are part of your family. And we thank you and praise you in Jesus' name.
Amen. Thank you, Julie. And
Thank
thank
you,
you for being
Kristen.
a brave voice who's setting so many free. I'm going to close with the anchoring verse for Hope Unlocked, and it's, may the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, so that by the power of the Holy Spirit, you may abound in hope. And that's Romans 15:13. So I will be back with another
Amen.
episode next week, and I will be sure to add Julie's contact information to the show notes. So definitely reach out if you have questions. Have a great day. Bye.